The hidden history begins with reasoning that 11 of the alleged hijackers could not have been present on the flights. Moreover, there are authentication problems with the Dulles Airport video, which is the crux of the FBI's case against the hijackers. The rest of the volume investigates insider trading prior to 9/11, the controlled demolition hypothesis, and military drills involving hijacking exercises by the U.S. Air Force on the day of 9/11. Tonight's lecture will focus on the 4 hijacked planes and also on issues of insider trading. I would like to call now on Professor Paul Zarembka.
Thank you very much for the invitation to make this presentation in Toronto. I'm particularly pleased to be in Toronto because my first step really forward on 9/11 Truth began in January or February, I don't remember which, of 2002, in which Terry Barrows introduced Michael Rupert, who wrote subsequently the book Crossing the Rubicon, right. So that was a watershed lecture for me, and after that I said I really had to understand 9/11. I am a professor of economics, so when we got this book put together, it came out of a whole number of faculty members communicating on a kind of it wasn't a list, but it was communicating among each other. And somebody said we should write a book. I had the Research in Political Economy series available. I said that, okay, we can publish it in one of those volumes, and that's really important for authors to know that they had a publishing outlet, so that they weren't going to work without being able to be published. And it turned out, I think, it's a very successful enterprise. I am proud of every single chapter in the book, and now we've got it from the Elsevier hardcover academic version, which was 2006, to the present version, which is the soft cover put out by 7 Stories Press in New York City, which is probably the leading independent publisher in New York City. I'm not talking about one of the big publishers. That would have been impossible. Most of the times I've been giving lectures on this book, I've been giving a survey of the book, and I'm not going to do that tonight. I've been informed, maybe incorrectly, but that many of you in the audience are already quite knowledgeable about 9/11, or at least fairly knowledgeable. And furthermore, Richard gave it actually a very good summary of sort of, in a very brief version of the case against the government about the overall picture. So actually I'm going to focus only on the things that I worked on. And I'm going to do that partly because it took a lot of work, and it's not so easy, and I don't agree with some other people in the 9/11 Truth movement in subtle details, maybe not so subtle, including in one case I'll mention where I don't really agree with David Ray Griffin. He and I have had some communications about this, but both of us are published a little bit differently on the issue about cell phones, so I'm going to be talking about that. But there's other things, including we have some people in the 9/11 Truth movement who think that there were no planes involved, and I'm going to take a stand against that also. But I'm going to try and do it carefully. I'm going to try and do it objectively and scientifically. And so what I'm really going to be doing is focusing on, if you want to put it this way, the psychodrama that was presented by having the planes go into the towers and hit the Pentagon and crashing into Pennsylvania, not the real event, if you want to put it that way. The real event was the demolition of the towers. Okay, I think that was the real event. Okay, and the planes were the cover for the real event. I emphasize that because if that's what really was going on, then they also had to organize that cover. And certain things about that cover, first of all, I don't think worked out as exactly as planned, but also looking at the cover carefully can expose the whole operation. So I'd like you to bear with me. I mean, to tell you the truth, I enjoyed working on the planes, on the issues of the 4 planes. And I also, as an economist, I had to work on the insider trading thing. And my background is actually in econometrics, which is the connection between economic theory and statistics. and that's one of the principal ways we've been able to get a handle on the insider trading that occurred before 9/11. That's particularly the week ahead of time. So I'm going to be talking about the planes, maybe 20, 25 minutes. I hope I don't get to 30, and then it'll be another 20 minutes on insider trading. That's what you should expect from me. Not a discussion about anything else. So let's start from the beginning, which is somebody needed to plan, I assume, 4 planes. There may have been a 5th, there may have been 7, I don't know. We know about 4 planes. The planes actually had, if you're planning the event, you have to think about the fact that planes don't take off on time, and they may not even take off. So let's look at when the planes were scheduled. The planes were scheduled more or less about 11 minutes apart, from about 7:59 to 8:10, either from 2 from the Boston airport, 1 from the Newark airport, 1 from the Dulles airport in the Washington, D.C. area. One of the planes did not take off as scheduled, and namely it was about 25 minutes late. Now, the first thing I have to say is when you're looking at the evidence about the planes, it's confusing to read the papers because they say the plane took off at, let's say, 7:59, okay, or they say something else. There's a distinction between when the plane is scheduled to take off, or excuse me, when it's scheduled to leave the gate, when it actually leaves the gate, and when it leaves the ground. So when I'm going to be talking about planes taking off, that's going to be what they call wheels off, the wheels off the ground, okay? So the planes took off, and maybe I can draw a picture, just a very brief picture of American Airlines Flight 11, which is the first one that took off. It took off going west, and about 15 minutes after takeoff, the transponder went off, and it went off in circumstances in which another plane was coming right through its path. In fact, there was a warning transmitted from the air traffic control that plane was in the area so that they should take a little deviation from their flight path. It then goes to Travis Air Force Base, which is near Albany, New York, the capital of the state of New York, and then turns south, and eventually, of course, goes to the World Trade Center 1, which is the North Tower. It hits the North Tower. The information about the possibility of a hijacking is around 8:20 a.m. Keep that time in mind, because that means at 8:20 is the first time that NORAD, everybody else, could possibly have known that there was anything wrong going on, more or less. I mean, 2 or 3 minutes, one way or another, around 8:20. I'm going to jump now just to let you know when the plane that went into Pennsylvania went into the ground. It was 10:06. So that's an hour and 46 minutes from the first warning to the last plane going down. It's incredible that the American defense capabilities were immobilized for such a long length of time. Okay, now, the first plane, and this is American Airlines 11, crashes into the North Tower at 8:46. Even that plane, if the air traffic control defenses had worked properly, even that first plane could have been intercepted. But let me just continue with this. The second plane, of course, is United Airlines 175, which takes a path something like this and going into the South Tower, and it crashes into the South Tower at 9:03. What's a little bit interesting about this particular plane is, notice this 9:03. Newark Airport is, this is the towers here, okay? Newark Airport is like here, something like that. Newark Airport, you can even see the World Trade Centers. At 8:38, a fourth plane takes off.